Right, I want to talk now about some practicalities, about things that you can do to become a more effective student. Two things you absolutely must attend to: filing and time management, right? Two really boring, obvious things, but you have to take care of them, you have to get good at them. So if you're not using some kind of diary, whether it's a paper diary or a diary on your phone, start now, because you need to be in control of your time. And you can if you use an electronic diary, then you can use um, some of the timetable functioning from the university. It can sync with your phone's own diary, so that you can get your academic timetable on your phone really effectively. But also, um, you need to be managing your own study time, right? So one of the things about university is you have far more solo study time. You have far more time out of the classroom, and you need to organise that. If you don't have a plan for your unstructured study time, then it won't be study time at all. It'll become hanging out time, and that will cost you in the end. Filing. You will generate a large amount of information, and you need to keep track of it. Exactly how you do it is up to you. There are all sorts of software tools, or you could do it all on paper. You could, have an old-fashioned folder with color-coded labels. It really doesn't matter, but you must have some kind of filing system to control the information that's coming at you and the notes that you generate. And by the way, if you're not collecting so much information that you need some kind of filing system, if you're not generating so many notes that you need some kind of filing system, then you're doing it wrong. Because to earn a philosophy degree, you need more information than you can deal with just by allowing it to pile up on your desk. Okay, so as a general rule, for every hour you spend in a lecture or a seminar, you should spend 3 hours in private study, right? So if for a module you have a 1 hour lecture per week and 1 hour of seminar, you should be doing about 6 hours of private study to go with that, right? And then if you think about it, if you do the sums, you do 4 modules, that adds up to a full-time working week. Now, it may be difficult to fit that around the rest of your life. Actually, if you really want to succeed, you don't want to be fitting your study around the rest of your life. The students who succeed are the ones who fit the rest of their lives around their study, right? You've got to get it that way around, otherwise you will struggle. Next tip, think about maps, right? Think about a book as if it was a map, because it's a lot of dense information. Now imagine reading a map like the London Underground map without having a destination in mind, right? As if you just tried to read the Underground map and absorb everything it has to say, all the stations and the lines and everything. It will be impossible. Of course you couldn't do that. Just opening a philosophy book and starting at page 1, and your question is, well, what does this say, is going to be hopeless. You won't succeed. I know, I did this, right? Start of my second year, right, over the summer, I thought, okay, I'll get reading, I'll prepare. So I read the whole of John Locke's essay on human understanding. And at the end of it, I had practically nothing because I didn't have a question, right? When you open a philosophy book or a philosophy text of any sort, you have to have a question in mind, and your question has to be something more specific than, what does this say? Okay? So formulate a question. What does this person have to say about this issue? Or what is their reply to the arguments of so-and-so? If you've got a question like that will allow you to filter and focus, then you can make some use of a philosophy book or an article. Otherwise, it's just going to be overwhelming. Okay. One of the most important things in philosophy is intuition, right? You need to have intuitions. For example, about moral things, you know. Do you think it's okay to deliberately kill one person to save five? People have intuitions about that, and you change the scenario and that changes people's intuitions about the answer. So, what do we do in philosophy? One of the first things you do is you have to express your intuitions, and then you have to challenge them and wonder whether they're true. Just because they're your intuition and you feel them, you know, as part of your own mind, part of your own consciousness, you feel a certain tenderness towards them, doesn't mean they're true, right? Just because they're yours. But on some topics, you may not have intuitions, right? On, say, like metaphysical stuff. Does the past really exist? If the past doesn't exist, what is it that makes truths about the past true? Well, wait a minute. There are also some truths about the future. You know, I think it's true that I'm going to eat breakfast tomorrow. Well, the future doesn't exist. It doesn't hear that yet. So, so what does that make? What makes that truth true? If it is true, right? Now, you may not have strong intuitions about this. So one of the things you have to do is generate some. You have to kind of roll the question around and find ways of playing with it, so that intuitions start to form, because then you've got something to bring to the philosophy table. And then you can look for contrasts and check your intuitions against the facts. Now, this means that you have to be prepared, right, for lectures and seminars. Lectures and seminars, it's like going for a job interview or going on a date or any other kind of, you know, fairly focused activity. You will get far more out of it. You're far more likely to achieve your aims if you prepare. One of the ways you prepare for lectures and seminars in philosophy is by doing the reading, but also by doing some thinking and by doing some talking and some listening. Talk about the reading, the issues, with other people. Not necessarily with a view to deciding what the truth of the matter is, but just to work up some intuitions, just to get some feelings, because lectures don't really stick unless you've got an experience you've already had that the lecture can connect with, right? So as you're listening to the lecture, you can think, oh, you're right, okay. That thing the lecturer just said, that relates to something that I've felt within myself. And then you're in business, right? Then the lecture becomes meaningful, right? But if it's a lecture on some fairly technical topic in epistemology or metaphysics, whatever, then you may not have the kinds of feelings spontaneously that you can connect it with. So generate some feelings, generate some intuitions. Why? By doing the reading and by discussing it with other people, right? That's the point of doing the reading and having a discussion in advance. Not so that you can understand the material, because if you achieved that, then what was the point of going to the lecture? No, you do the reading and you have the discussion before the lecture or the seminar so that you've got some feelings, and they may be feelings of bafflement, they may be feelings of confusion or anger or disbelief that anybody, you know, would write such nonsense. Those are all good feelings. Those are all good feelings to bring to a seminar, because then you've got something to talk about. What are lectures for? Lectures help you to organize and contextualize your ideas, and they give you the big picture, right? They give you the story about, you know, how philosophy got to this point, so that you know what you're talking about. The main thing I want to tell you about lectures is lectures do not tell you everything you need to know. I will say it again. Lectures do not tell you everything that you need to know. So if you rely on the lecture notes, if you rely on recordings of the lectures and you don't look at anything else, you don't do any other reading, you will come a cropper. Yeah. So do listen to the lectures, but don't rely on them for everything. You need to do the reading, and you need to talk to other people, right? And this brings me on to my next tip, which is collaboration. Collaboration is really important. Collaboration is different from collusion. Collusion is an academic offence and you shouldn't do it. Collaboration is what everybody does. Collaboration is what professionals do. What's the difference? Well, if you've written an essay and you're a bit worried about it, and your friend who's 2 years further on and an A student agrees to rewrite a paragraph for you, that's collusion, right? Because they're writing your work for you. Or if they tell you what to write, that's collusion. But if you're worried about your essay and you show it to somebody who's more advanced than you, somebody who's, you're in the first year, they're in the third year or whatever, and they read your essay and they say, well, look, this second paragraph doesn't make any sense. This argument that you're making on page 2 has a very obvious counterexample. And the thing that you say about Leibniz in the end is just plain false. And everybody who knows about Leibniz knows that it's false. So you need to fix those things. And they hand your essay back to you with those criticisms. And you go away and fix them. And you go away and rewrite your second paragraph so that it makes sense. And you go away and adjust the argument you make on page 2 so that it's no longer vulnerable to whatever the counterexample was. And you go away and learn a bit more about Leibniz so that you don't say obviously false things about him. Well, that's okay, right? That kind of help is good. That's what we want students to be doing for each other all the time. It's what the professionals do. If I write a paper, I get help. I show it to colleagues. I go and take it to a conference and I read it aloud. And everybody at the conference tells me why it's a load of nonsense and why my argument doesn't work, and I go away and I lick my wounds and I massage my ego and I cry in pain for a few days, and then I get to work fixing the problems that my friends and colleagues pointed out, and then I have another go, and eventually I send it off to a journal, and the journal sends it to referees, and the referees will write reports about why my article doesn't work and why its argument fails, and I read these reports and I cry inside for a little while, and then I get to work and I fix it. And the thing that I publish in the end is better. Why? Because I got all of this help. All of these critical friends who told me why earlier versions needed improvement. Now, if that's how the professionals do it, you need to do it that way as well, right? So you need to be working with other students. Okay. And if you look at any article, there's usually an acknowledgement section, right? There's usually a bit where somebody says, and certainly in books, every academic book has an acknowledgement section where the author says, I couldn't have written this book without the help of the following people who pointed out mistakes and told me things I needed to know, right? And so on and so forth, right? So you need to do that as well. Philosophy is an activity, right? It's not just a body of knowledge, it's something we do. It's not just something we know. Like music, right? So if you're a music student, you wouldn't just read about music. You would practice relentlessly. You would spend a long time doing music, right? You would find ways to do music. And if you saw that there was some famous musician in town, some virtuoso, you'd go and watch them, right? And you would watch great musicians performing on YouTube all the time, right? So you would watch the masters at work, and also you would seize any opportunity to play in public, right? You wouldn't just say, oh, I'm not ready yet, and I'm not sure I'm any good and I'm shy. No, if you're serious about learning music, you play in public, because that gives you focus and it gives you feedback. So what should you be doing? You should be going to PhilSoc, you should be going to public lectures, and you should be seizing opportunities to give talks. That may seem a bit ambitious if you're at the start of your university career, but honestly, one of the best things you can do is give a philosophy talk. It will build your confidence, it will build your knowledge, it will take you a step away from being a kind of super advanced A-level student and take you towards being a kind of cadet level of the university staff, which is where you want to be. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to talk about in the next video is attitudes. What kind of mental attitudes you need to have if you're going to succeed at university and enjoy your studies.